Greetings. My name's Guy Dauncey. This is the show that we call Change the World because we like to explore people who are following a big vision in life or having big, bold ideas. So tonight I've got two guests who are pursuing the absence of something, which is the vision would be that no young people ever get exploited or trafficked sexually or for other reasons. And I got two guests. Michael Down, welcome, teaches in the Faculty of Criminology at VIU, where your research focus is human trafficking and child sexual exploitation. And you're currently working with a consortium of local charities to develop an action plan to develop child and youth exploitation, to prevent. Yes. Right. And then we have Tagen Marshall, welcome. 16-year-old student from Nanaimo Christian School, born 28 weeks prematurely, has cerebral palsy, which has changed the course of your life. Well, yes. For sure it has. In 2012, you were placed with your current foster family, this is your notes, Ria, which became a turning point in your life. In addition to becoming a Christian, your new family helped you find your way in the world and seek creative ways to overcome adversity. And you have found a passion for working for this cause to protect women and children from being sexually exploited and trafficked. How did that start for you?
It's funny. I was in a social justice course.
Yeah.
As I emailed you, and they said find a topic you're passionate about, because they were all going to the Dominican Republic.
Right.
Well, I can't go to the Dominican Republic for several reasons.
Yeah.
But I said, well, what am I passionate about? And my mom has a friend, Kathy Peters, who I knew was doing work on this issue.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, it's probably not that deep and dark, is it? So I called her up, said, I want to help you.
Yeah.
She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. She said, all right, I'll send you some material. Well,
yeah.
You know, you don't realize how dark this stuff is.
I work on different issues that change the world as well, and I spent 20 years working on the climate crisis. And it's only when you dig in and you really start doing that research that, as you say, you realize how deep it is, how difficult, and you begin to find out what's really going on. Yeah. So how did you get involved in this field, Michael?
Right. As I was studying as a graduate student, one of my classmates at the time was engaged in very specific research related to the subject matter. Yeah. And she really challenged the status quo assumptions that I think many Canadians have about the sex market and what's really going on in many instances. Yeah. So for me, listening to her discuss her research was a game changer. Yeah.
So what I've learned from my bit of reading around this, in the sex market, there's some women and men who are voluntarily doing it. There's some in what I believe is called the sex survival trade. They're driven in by poverty and hardship. But you're dealing with the darker end of it, when women are actually trafficked and exploited against their conscious will or unconscious will, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That would be correct.
And if I'm right, some of these women are coming from the foster care system.
A large majority. There was a survey done. This is in Invisible Chains. So if you want to...
Let me have that book and let me sort of show it up. This is Invisible Chains, if the camera gets on this. There we go, yeah. This is the book that helped you understand stuff.
So it's the textbook, and I know Michael uses this with his students as well. Yeah. Great resource. But there was a study done where it was like 50 to, what was it, 98% or so came out of the foster care system. Yeah. Were sexually exploited while they were in the foster care system. Yeah. And I almost always get teary at that statistic.
So we got to put, I haven't got the stats, but within the foster care system, there's a whole lot of children who are not falling into this dark hole.
Right, yes. Right. So I think that what he's meaning to say is that there's a disproportionate percentage of people that end up as victims of human trafficking that have a number of challenges in the background, whether it be being wards of the state, encountering homelessness at some point in time. And I think that's the point he's trying to express. So when you dig down into the statistics, you see those vulnerable groups are greatly overrepresented.
I can imagine why. I was effectively orphaned for 3 months when I was 3 years old, like complete abandonment, sheltered away in a children's home now. And I know how clingy and emotionally dependent that made me for quite a while coming out of it. My mother said I just wouldn't let go of her. And if I'd had that absence of good, loving parenting all through my years, the size of the confusion or the dark hole inside me would be just enormous.
Right.
And then I'd be very vulnerable to someone saying, oh, I promise you this, and I'll give you love, or I'll give you that.
I really appreciate what you just said there, because a lot of people want to shy away from that. The big problem we have is lack of good father figures.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring up a situation which hit Nanaimo greatly recently. We lost Michaela Chang.
Yes.
Great sadness to a lot of us. I knew her from my youth.
She was your kind of age, wasn't she?
She was 15?
Yeah.
16.
Yeah.
16. So exactly my age.
Right.
I knew her from my youth group. And she didn't have a good father. So when I read the statistic regarding those foster children,
Yes.
you know, it's no wonder they're dragged into this.
Yeah.
If as you said, they don't have those role models, that's why these men can romance them so easily.
Yeah.
Because who else is going to do it?
Yeah.
So
one of the pieces you gave me showed me that there are two kinds of pimps. What are called the Romeo pimps, who are using romantic relationships. I'll love you forever, I'll be your man. And then the guerrilla pimps, who are using violence and extortation, who will actually move women to another city, steal their identity, to their brand on them, or more predatory.
Right.
Is it 50-50, or how does the balance work out?
You want to go first?
Yeah,
Michael,
no, it's very difficult to ascertain that. The so-called guerrilla pimps are more associated with organized crime.
Right.
And have connections with some of the established big name groups, which I can't mention for obvious reasons, but they would not be surprising to people familiar with organized crime groups active, say, on the West Coast and other parts of the country. And they tend to have a larger type of operation that may involve more victims over a wider variety of communities.
Yeah. So we're talking youngish girls, like 15 through to early 20s, who've either come out of the foster care system or group homes, or they've been stuck on drugs and they're vulnerable. Yeah?
Well, they're vulnerable, but they're vulnerable for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
So that statistic is just a rough age range. There are some that get into the sex trade as early as 12, 13.
Whoa.
And the way those pimps and the traffickers do it is exactly what you mentioned. It's called the Loverboy Tactic.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're like, oh, you're so pretty, I want to be with you.
Yeah.
You know, they flatter them, they shower them with praise, they buy them gifts.
Yeah.
So they get those attachment bonds going, and then all of a sudden, you know, the guy starts running into money problems. He says, oh, honey, you know, this is difficult. I just need you to work in this massage parlor, which my buddy's running, only for a few months.
Yeah.
And then our dreams will happen. Well, so they get into that. They're in so much physical pain from having sex with 30 to 40 men.
Yeah.
Some as high as 50, depending.
Yeah.
And you know, they say to him, well, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And they're like, you better do this.
Yeah.
You better do this. And the tables turn instantaneously.
Have you had the chance to meet any of these girls?
I haven't met them personally, but I did have a friend of mine come up to me after one of my presentations I did. He said, I lost one of my family members on the highway of tears.
Yeah.
And you know, that shakes you up. And I've heard a good TED Talk to look up would be Trish Baptiste.
Yeah.
she is a former prostitute and former trafficking victim.
So, Michael, you probably have had personal contact
with survivors.
How easy do they find it to tell their story?
Well, that's a great question, and this is something that I think a lot of people in the general public wouldn't understand. We have to be very careful about our expectations in relation to getting people to open up and share about these experiences, because there's a very acute danger of them being re-victimized psychologically through our demands or maybe innocent misunderstandings of how that might impact them. So when I'm listening to people recount their stories, it's basically always at the level with which they're comfortable sharing things, and not something that I'm directing.
Well, it took me till I was 30 to go into therapy and begin to access my inner story, which is, you know, when you're really hurting, you bury it down under, it's painful, and you want to get it out of the way by whatever means you can, right?
Right.
And 30's a long way from 15. Yeah.
Certainly. And in these instances where I've listened to these courageous women and men recount their stories, you can see the emotion and the pain washing over them afresh at times in the way they're speaking.
So you spoke to Nanaimo City Council about all this, and I believe to Qualicum Town Council as well. How did it go with Nanaimo? What was the response of the councillors?
Well, I finished my presentation, and first presentation I'd ever done at that point.
Takes a lot of courage to do that.
And I was like,
was your heart going boom, 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 boom?
Yeah, exactly. But I finished.
Yeah.
And I had tears in my eyes, and everyone in the council room clapped.
Wow.
And you're not supposed to clap at a council.
No, I've never been clapped when I do a presentation.
And the mayor said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, this has to be the most moving presentation I've seen in all of my 4.5 years of serving with this council.
So you're being a very effective communicator then around the problem.
Well,
you hope you are, yeah?
I hope.
You are being.
And I have to be.
You have, yeah.
Because, we can't have another Michaela Chang incident. And I have a little sister who's First Nations, and the First Nations are at super high risk because, there's certain dynamics there.
So having laid the problem on the table, we obviously want to say, what can we do to protect the girls, to ideally end this as prostitution's as old as the hills. But this kind of exploitation is trafficking. We can't tolerate it.
Right.
What do they need? What do the girls need from? Is it improved foster care? Is it better housing? Is it more supportive group homes? Is it personal counselling? Is it Tagen?
That could help them, but it won't. Because where it has to begin is it has to begin with us as men in particular.
Okay.
Where it absolutely has to begin.
You've just done it.
Wow.
Doesn't matter, carry on.
Where it has to begin is with us. What I say to most people is, and what I say to everyone is, if I can pick up my book without hitting my microphone, you need to read this book.
Okay.
It's heavy, but Benjamin Perrin, who I'm in contact with, studied this issue for 10 years in Cambodia. So educate yourself, and I'll let Michael take it from there.
Yeah, there are a number of practical measures that can be implemented, and indeed that I'm looking at with some colleagues locally. And hoping to move forward on in the coming months and years. And they involve educating the public, educating youth. And the sad reality is, with the age range being where it is, we need to be talking to this, addressing this issue rather with middle school age kids in some instances. If we're waiting until they're in high school, sadly that's too late. We need to be integrating resources and responses better in this province amongst institutions, whether that be MCFD, police services, other first response services, the healthcare system, as you've read about in the Ottawa Citizen. They have a integrated response there. You know, Greater Halifax has a very nicely integrated response according to everything I've read about there. And we need probably to have specifically trained and deployed officers and groups of officers within our police services that are focusing specifically on this issue.
So the police are targeted, they got better skills of listening and talking and addressing this stuff,
These are very unique cases. These are victims that have very unique needs, and to be fair to everybody involved, they're going to be best served by having people with a great level of expertise, not only in understanding the law, but in understanding trauma-centered victimology.
I mean, for viewers to understand what's happening here, just from this book, Invisible Chains, is in Toronto, a 14-year-old Canadian girl who could have lived out here, ended up in Toronto, is being auctioned on Craigslist.
Yes.
And the gang in Quebec called the Wolfpack is recruiting the teenagers and selling them for sex to high-profile men in the community. You know, the men of high status who keep it quiet and hushed up, presumably. I mean, this is really shameful for us as men to know that our sex does this. What's happening? Yeah, go on.
Like, it's so saddening. If I'm to go back to my age group.
Yes.
You know, what's fooling this for us as men, and, you know, I can speak to an extent.
Yes.
Is the pornography industry. I heard a story from an event I was at a while back.
Yeah.
Where the police were called on this young teen boy. He was on a date with his girlfriend.
Yes.
Anyway, the police were called. The police get there. To give you an idea of how aggressive this is, he was choking her. He was choking her in the back of his car. The police officer, who was a man, said, "What do you think you're doing?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, isn't that what girls want?"
Wow.
On further investigation, they discovered that he had been watching pornography before this happened.
And he's getting all the crazy ideas about what sex is.
Because that's what's portrayed.
Yes. Have you ever thought of getting an invitation to speak in middle schools and high schools?
Funny you mentioned that. I have reached out to Bowes School District 69, which is Parksville, Qualicum, and 68, requesting the ability to go into schools as of right now.
So when you send that request letter, Michael, do you send a backup letter with that to sort of endorse Tagen and things like that?
This is the first time I've heard of this specific initiative from him, but...
I get a chance to speak in high school sometimes, and I ask to get the whole school on the floor of the gym. So I've got 400 kids. And with a good microphone, you can really hold their attention, because those are the very age group, both the girls and the boys, just to be aware of it and be aware that they can talk about it to their friends. If some girls are feeling, you know, they think, I can recognize myself, I'm feeling unloved and needy, and be aware of this.
And here's the scary thing. I will bring up the launch at a sec, but I can't stress this enough. That this can be anyone's daughter. This can be anyone's granddaughter, because, you know, we all want to feel appreciated. We all want to feel loved and respected. So when, let's say, this 18, 19, maybe 20-year-old man who looks good says, "Oh, I love you, sweetheart. You know, I want to spend the rest of my life with you." That looks pretty dang good. And then, you know, they get picked up out of the schoolyard.
And so for the teachers who are interacting with the kids all day, if they are aware of this, and they can know how to read the signals of which children look to be vulnerable and how there's needs, and, you know, something. Go on.
No, these are great points, and we spent a fair bit of time discussing how many of these predators will focus on vulnerable groups.
Yeah.
But the reality is, as Tagen said, it can happen to anyone's child, and oftentimes, you know, it can occur in shopping malls. It can occur online with the way social media, other sorts of online interactions are occurring these days with a certain amount of anonymity and parents being unaware about what their children
parents
are
can't
interacting
keep up with
with.
all the stuff going on, So it struck me that this is going to become a video available on YouTube. And so when, I don't know how recently you approached the school boards and it's holidays now, but you might want to get in touch again and send them a link to the video and say that, you know, both Michael and myself recommended that they have you as a speaker to come and speak, not just, you know, to as many kids as possible. Because peer-to-peer is so much better. It's so much better,
And there's that level of connection.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind, can I get into the law? Because I feel like this is important. In fact, what I have here is a human trafficking package which is put out by the RCMP from Ottawa.
Yeah, this is for the camera here. It's called Human Trafficking. Yeah, it's RCMP folder with I'm not for sale. I'm not for sale. It says promises, money, seduction, manipulation, intimidation, threads, exploitation, pimps. Carry on about the law side of this.
And like 75% of people in our sex trade started as children, as well as 93% of all people in the sex trade are Canadian. So don't think this is just global people coming in and out.
Right, according to RCMP's own statistics from a couple of years ago, 93% of the cases of human trafficking specifically involved Canadian victims as opposed to international victims.
Right.
So he's pointing out a very important issue that I think is a misconception that some of the general public have, that when we're talking about trafficking, we're talking about people that are being brought across a border or a
so
boundary.
this could be happening to the Nanaimo girls in Nanaimo, to Duncan girls in Duncan, to Victoria girls in Victoria, to Souk girls in Souk.
Oh, indeed it is. It's to a tune of nationally thousands and thousands of victims at any given time.
Wow. Yeah. So
anyway,
say more about the law.
The law,
yes.
Bill C-36, was brought into the House by MP Joy Smith from Manitoba, was it?
Yes.
Basically, it's the Protections of Communities and Exploited Persons Act. And what this law has allowed us to do is target these pedophiles and these rapists. We're going to call them what they are.
Yeah.
In lighter terms, we would call them pimps and johns.
Yeah.
But in criminal code language, that's
correct.
what they are. And that allows us to target them as the perpetrators. And the girls are no longer treated as the perpetrator, but they're treated as the victim.
Yeah.
And then with that law, then we can put exit strategies in place for those who get out, but a large majority will never get out. And so to give you an example of how this law can be used, so the guy who, is in a hotel and calls up an escort agency to get a girl delivered to his hotel room is now breaking the law. Now,
wow. A lot of men don't know that.
Yeah, because what is that? That's sexual exploitation. And, I was shocked when I read that, because I was like...
Yeah. Have you met with the police locally?
I have spoken with Cameron Miller just in passing.
Yeah.
I have tried to arrange a meeting, but unfortunately we both just missed each other, so we hope to do that.
You're what, 16 now, are you?
Yep.
So Michael, how would we advise Tagen about career development? What kind of, how would you advise him to pursue a career?
Certainly. When I look at a young person like Tagen, obviously, as you can see, he's immensely courageous, intelligent,
committed, passionate,
articulate, passionate. So I see that here's a young person that could apply this skill set and passion to do any number of things.
You could become a lawyer, right?
That would be one possibility.
You could go into politics and be a politician.
Yeah, you could study.
So what do you think? What's your thoughts for the future of how you...
I've definitely thought of being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Definitely considered it.
Yeah.
Because I keep bringing up Michaela Chang, but she's such a prime example of, you know, she wasn't trafficked per se, but she was lost. And,
yes.
And, you know,
and she was lost with sexual abuse in the picture.
Yeah,
we know that, we think, right?
And she was vulnerable.
Yeah.
And someone decided to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And we as men cannot let that happen, because look at those faces on that pamphlet.
Yeah.
These are my friends. These are your grandchildren, perhaps, your great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
We have no right.
So we got to, believe it or not, half an hour's flown by. We have to wind up soon. In your email to me, you quoted William Wilberforce, who was one of the champions in Britain coming out of the Methodist Church, who said, I've seen slavery, we have to stop the slave trade. And you quote him as saying, you may choose to look away, but you can never say you didn't know. So what you're doing is saying, here this is, I'm telling you this is happening. Please help, please.
I mean, please be there for them.
Yeah, and if you're speaking to camera, this camera over here, and imagine that there's some young women, this camera over here taken, right? And imagine that they're listening to this. What would you want to say to young girls directly?
Look, you are valuable. You deserve better than this. You deserve to be loved, and don't think for a second that you're anything less than precious to us.
You know, I'll wind up, one of my insights in getting through my childhood stuff was I was having therapy once, and I got a little voice inside myself, because I was beating myself up. When you think you're not good enough, you're endlessly, that little critical voice that's going round and round all the time. And I got this insight that if God or the universe loves me unconditionally, who the heck do I think I am to think I know better? And it just cleared away all that self-judgment. So what you're saying to those girls, you're valuable, you're beautiful. This has been the show Change the World. One of my contributions is this book I've done called Journey to the Future, A Better World is Possible, set in Vancouver in the year 2032, when people are actively working in the way that Tagen is and the way that Michael is to make the world a better place. If you enjoy shows like this or want to be on it, get in touch with us through the email on the screen. And thanks for watching us, and tune in next week.